Okay, we now need to move into executive session. Do I have a motion to go into closed session, executive session?
I'll make the second, you can make it.
All right.
Move that we go into closed session.
Mr. Mims, is there a second? Mr. Rivers? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, we're in closed session. So, if you all would please.
Now that you've gotten comfortably seated.
Closed session, I'd like to make a motion that we extend Dr. McLean's contract by 2 years.
Is there a second? Any further discussion?
What concerns me, Dr. McLean, I want you to understand, I have utmost confidence in you, and this is what I'm going to say has nothing to do about my opinion of you. I believe, and I argued in closed session, I believe that we don't have enough data yet until we get the performance data from this past year. All we have is 1 year of academic data. That 1 year showed a decline in performance. I would like to wait until we get the academic data for 2018-19, which I'm hopeful will show that we have turned the corner and are moving upward. And I think at that point, we would have positive achievements that would strongly justify extending your contract. So I have argued that we wait until we get that data. I will end up voting against this, but it is not because of a lack of confidence in you or a lack of regard for you. And I just want you to understand that.
Thank you. Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Aye.
motion carries. Motion carries 4-2. Okay. The next item on the agenda is a board discussion about roles and responsibilities of board members. We can discuss any way we want to, but you've got a copy of state statute, local board policies, and the superintendent's contract related to this item. It seems to me that that would make a good place to begin, so that when we talk about roles and responsibilities, we're all on the same page as far as the legality and board policy and so on and so forth. So, any comments about state statute or local or anything anybody wants to talk about in terms of what are the roles and responsibilities that come out of that information? Teacher. So, by the way, thank you, Ms. Pedway, for putting this together.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, we need to do that. Okay, does anybody else need to take a break?
I think it would be good just to, before we start back. working.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break.
I know all about hornets and wasps.
Eric says it was a huge crowd. That is, was that group at first?
Yeah. They say Christian Faces was big for that too.
That's the one that's the one they always panic about because it's so long.
Yeah, yeah. This year we did ours last year on Wednesday. All of our kids are there on campus. This year when they did Thursday, we always have at least one day off on a field trip.
Okay. They were excited. I think the team was excited too to bag that bus up to that back door.
It didn't take no time to pack that up today.
When Jackie met yesterday, she said, "Remember, bag the bus up to the back door tomorrow."
You had to go get your charger?
Yeah, I found my phone so I can connect here. It's useless without the cloud.
You know much about, how do they get kids here now? I know it's not as near as it used to be.
So you were, your wings have been cut on campus.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't ever print things out anymore, you know? I have to print things out. Yeah. I have to be able to touch it. If it's more than a few pages, I do. Yeah.
Becky's mom was raised in all of her sections.
Just so shallow.
And it was odd.
So we are stronger in the state.
This is kind of so
Yeah.
changed. Is they would bring the
Oh,
kids
okay,
to
so she
Jerusalem.
called her.
Here it was five of them. Family was school. They would come check them out in the summer.
Thank you for allowing me to make that.
And Becky,
Make your, yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Becky's future dad this way. Turned out there was 37 years different. And so I guess the age at that point was 16, you could be checked out. And so
In the future, do I make a
apparently
motion
they
that I go to the bathroom?
No, you just get up and leave. That happens often.
It was like, I thought she was messing
No, but
with
I'm glad you're on
Yeah.
board. You're crossing my legs.
Did she get the hand, like, actually,
I think that then is when they, yeah.
because when I was in the work, you know, they started coming.
Mhm.
Incredible, yeah. And I know we've been here to that
Women have to go to the
alumni weekend and all that.
Oh, does-
Well,
yeah.
in our-
In general, I agree.
You know,
Which are
shenanigans are happening there all the time, and Wade was in the audience, you know, but
also have the.
this week, I don't know if you saw it, just about the family.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, my
yeah.
God. So these parents just fancy themselves the freedom. So one of them got married.
Becky.
That's right.
So we showed up to a board meeting, and you know,
I'll be driving
constantly
along
his
and
hand
I'm
over his
feeling
mouth
great.
holding up signs.
In the
And I
past,
was like,
10 years ago, I was saying,
How do
you know, I
sit there and not make
got
any reaction when somebody disengages in
What did
something?
he say?
It was something.
Ms. Pettaway, would you go, tell Mr. Mims to get,
Now we drive along
that we started again? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start. Our time is up, and Ms. Pettaway's gonna go get Mr. Mims and Dr. McLean. So, does anybody have a particular issue with board policies, with state law, and with the contract regarding provisions? And I think the best way maybe to get this started, and this is a discussion, there's no motions or anything tonight, is the concept of the board as a body of the whole. And it does make it difficult at times, but the law is the law. And any comments? Well, that's an exciting. How how does that, we talked about having to get together and talk about roles and the responsibilities of the board. Do I need to wait a minute, let you have time to read some of it? Is that yours?
Yes.
Mine looks just like it. Yep.
Can I just jump in and throw out the question that I have a question about?
Let's wait just a
Okay.
couple of minutes, because we want everybody to be able to pay attention while we do this. All right, David, you want to get started?
I guess just overall, I mean, one of the things I learned in Board 101 when we went through it was this whole board as a whole concept. I guess my question just being thrown out there is I felt like a couple months ago, we had talked about funneling requests back to the board if we wanted stuff prepared for us. We kind of had the gentleman, now it can be a ladies' agreement, before we went somewhere, we kind of informed the superintendent. I guess my question is that's kind of what I was taught from day one by Deborah Dupree. Where did we get off on that, and how are we back to this conversation again, would just kind of be my starter question.
Well, I have a question. There was, Dr. McLean referred to an action by you two that basically
Does that answer his question? Because he asked the question.
Yeah,
I'm just
he asked
kind of
how-
starting the conversation.
I am, yeah, trying to
Okay.
how we got where we are. Well, where we are today. And I'm just curious along that line. You mentioned that Dr. Houlihan, in an email to the board, had come up with a new process, you called it, that every request for information would have to go through the entire board. But none of us, at least Mr. Mims and I, have no recollection of that ever being done. And then, Dr. Houlihan, you mentioned to me a memo you had sent out. I never could find it. Mr. Mims never got it.
It's in here.
But we never got it. So I guess what's going on there? I mean, is there a memo?
Well,
Was there a process?
there
And if
was a
so,
memo.
Why wasn't the board?
There was a memo, and it was discussed at the April board meeting.
Am I correct that that was emailed out? Is that how we got those?
Yeah, it was, and we discussed the idea of doing away with committees and going to one. In fact, during the discussion, kind of committee like Danny Udy had, and it is in here. You all got it, and it references the issue about the board.
I'm sorry. Can you figure out where to tell us?
Where is
It's
that?
in 4B,
4B,
the last page.
the last page.
You said this was in board docs, Ms. Penaway?
It was.
4B, correct. I would also add that prior to the March 27th, if you look at the March 18th memo, or whatever, not memo, but with Robert's Rule of Order, if you'll turn it over, you'll see the body as a whole, the source body, the role of individual school board members, body as a whole. School boards in North Carolina is specifically referred to as a body. This means no single individual can request, demand reports, or make decisions as an individual. So, I mean, these were discussed. No one ever raised any questions about it. All we're trying to do there is to follow the rule of the law. And
Matt, can I ask a question about that?
sure,
You said follow the rule of the law. Is this
of the
policy?
body of the whole.
So, I guess I'm just trying to make sure I understand. Is this law? Is this policy? There's a difference.
It's not law. And no one who saw this, and all of us saw it, no one raised a question. Do we need to do X, Y, or Z? Do we need to vote on this? That would have been whatever. Just trying to get the thing organized and moving forward. So,
I understand that, but I
but
just
it's
asked
not
a
a
question.
policy.
So it's not a law, it's not a policy. What is it?
Well, some of these are policies.
I was just gonna say that under the state statutes right here, it says although individual board members may express independent views, the board must act as a unit, right? Doesn't it say right there?
One of the disconnects is,
Excuse me. I'd like to get my
I'm
question
sorry.
answered before we move on. I want to know if it's a law, a policy, or what is it? Because A, if it is a law, it came down from the General Assembly. If it's a policy, there had to be a policy process that we had to execute. And if it's something else, tell me what that something else is. That's all I want to know.
Would you read that again, Adam?
State statute 115C40, although individual board members may express independent views, the board must act as a unit. As a general rule, no single member, committee, or group of board members may act on behalf of the board, except by decision of the majority meeting in an official session, called and conducted according to the provisions of the statutes that created the board and govern its operation.
Well, I'd like to know, what do you mean when you say act on behalf of the board? I don't know of any board member signing anything or going out speaking to the media on behalf of the board, but to ask a question or to solicit information is not, if that is against board policy to ask questions, let me know. I mean, that's all.
Or does that speak to the issue of requesting things being created? Is that kind of how that, as far as reports being?
Let's get back to the nuts and bolts. This came up when, I guess, Joe Toller and Jim Blaine requested information and he was getting information back. We know that Mr. Rivers has been asking for information for months. So my question is it law, is it policy, or what? That's all. Because whatever it is, there should have been a process to arrive at that. And that's all I wanted to know. What was the process? I don't care what it is. I just like to know what was the process to arrive at this.
The North Carolina State Statute 150C or whatever it is.
115C40.
I mean,
And I need to clarify, this is not a verbatim quote of 11540. This is a memo from the School Board Association explaining what the statute means. Now, 115C40 is the statute that says the board is a body corporate.
where does that say an individual board member cannot ask for information?
So it doesn't get that detailed. I mean, my understanding
Exactly, it does.
is, right, I
But
mean, my
it gets
understanding is,
into the, but then that speaks to the contract of not asking for information that's not been created. Is that correct?
the contract does say that. And you have policies that address board superintendent relations, although they are also not that specific.
Let's also address the
comment about Mr. Blaine's public information request. All of those go through Dr. Winborn. So Dr. Winborn, will you speak to that for me, please?
So everything that Mr. Blaine had requested at that time were just simply documents that already existed and were in board docs.
That's
So
not true. That is not true. I had to create a document. It took me 5 hours to do it. You asked me, Dr. McLean, and I responded the same day. I had to take all of my calculations on how I came up with the cost per student delta between Joe Toller and the other 3 Northern Elementary schools.
Well, I didn't provide that, Mr. Rivers.
Well, Dr. McLean sent me an email and said Mr. Blaine had asked for it, and I provided it, and that became a public record. But that was not in existence before you asked for it.
Mr. Blaine was the second person to request it. You actually provided that to Ms. Day and I for the first person who requested it. Mr. Blaine was not the first person, so it already existed for him,
But I had to create it for the first person.
for the first person.
Correct.
So when Mr. Blaine requested it, it already existed. So just to clarify, there was a female with whom we met in my office who already requested it, and you'd already provided it. He was the
I
second
guess-
person.
I
Wait a
guess-
minute, Stan, did you have anything else related to this that you needed to say to the full board?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, that's accurate.
And so you were correct.
Yeah.
I guess the point is, what's frustrating to me, and since this is roles and responsibilities, I'm going to tell you what's frustrating to me. I jumped on that because I thought it was important, and requests for public information is important, and I provided the same day. And I've had information requests since January that you approved, that you said we're going to give you. Still don't have it. Now, and I don't understand, I've asked for 3 things in 7 months of being on the board. I've asked for cost per school data. I've asked for the lab report, the lab algorithm data. And I've asked for how many classrooms needed flags, because I was going to buy the flags to keep us in compliance with state law. Those are the only 3 things I've asked for, and I finally got part of one and the other, the flag number, in July. I asked for that information in January and early February. And my question is, that does not seem to me to be an overly burdensome board member just asking for stuff every day. That's 3 items. We're now 9 months, in 9 months. So I don't understand, and I don't understand Dr. Houlihan and Dr. McLean. I do not understand why I can't get the lab data. I could sit down with Ms. Day, and in 20 minutes, I could get the 12 items I need to calculate how much money we are wasting each year by being below capacity. I don't understand the reluctance to provide a board member. I fully recognize I cannot go out and tell somebody, hey, we're going to close the school. I can't. I bring it to the board. You all can take the information. I can make a motion, and you can vote it down 6-1. But just, I don't understand this absolute, and maybe I'm missing something, this absolute reluctance to provide me with information that I've patiently waited for 7 months that I believe is critical information.
Okay, let's start with the first one. With regard to the lab study, from the minutes we had, you asked the board if you could contact Dr. Ladd, and we didn't see in there where you asked the board if you could get the information for all of those individual pieces. And so that puts us right dead in the middle of, do we give the information? Do we not give the information? Because the instruction comes from the board based on the document you just saw. We don't get to make that decision based on this. But I said to you, but no, and Ms. Day then has questions. I think I sent in an email that there were questions about the study, the information you're requesting. She needs to know, is it state? Is it local? Is it federal? What type of classroom teachers? There are lots of questions to go with it. But the first step for us is, does the board want you to have that information? So that's the Ladd piece. Did Dr. Ladd agree to it before she goes? I know it sounds like a simple push of a button. Do you want to add to that a little bit, Ms. Day? Yeah, just to clarify there are a lot of different factors that go into what numbers might be needed for that. What specifically, just like Dr. McLean said, what time period, what type, classroom teachers, that sounds pretty easy, but it's really not. Like what constitutes a classroom teacher? What is it, what funding source,
which, is it a pre-K teacher, is that an EC teacher, is that there's a lot of different intricacies in there, so.
And that's not really the data I needed, but you sent me an email on February 6th saying, I've told the staff to get you the data. You
That they
approved
were
it.
gonna work on it.
Yeah, that was February
Absolutely.
6th. So, and I also asked to meet with Ms. Day one-on-one and just,
No,
she
what
and
they
I
were
could
gonna
pull it
work
out.
on was individual classroom calculations for you. The LAD study, we were all waiting to hear back from you on whether Dr. Ladd agreed to the study. We still don't know
It
that.
had nothing to do with Dr. Ladd. I was gonna meet with Dr. Ladd on another, just to talk to her about how she, the algorithm and all that. I sent you a specific email, copy the board, and I asked for those 12 items, and you responded to me on February 6th. I got the emails, not with me, but I can pull it up. I can forward it to you, forward it to the board, be happy to. And you said, I've directed the staff to provide this data. You told me that February 6th. And I sent you subsequent emails, and I included those February 6th emails that you sent me. So the question is, you told me you're going to give me the data, and you haven't given it to me. And it's so critical. I don't understand why I can't get it.
If we can settle that tonight, I'd love to give you the data. I just need to hear from the board because Ms. Day needs a lot of detail about the type of data this board would like for her to do. I will tell you, time of year has a lot to do with that. If it was February that you requested that, I can tell you exactly what our budget team was doing, finance department. I'm sure that was in there from the emails I saw. Time of year. And I think I said that to you as
You said it
well.
may take a couple of weeks.
In the
I got the
emails.
email I can show you. You said a couple of weeks.
I bet I could show you too.
Well, we can both show
We
each
could
other.
show
How
each
about
other.
that?
I have it.
Yeah,
Do you want me to forward it, or how
that,
do you want?
it
I've
is
got it. I don't
perfectly,
need it. I've got
it's
it.
perfectly fine. The other thing is the classroom data, and I know you had an emergency with your mother-in-law, and I told you we're always sympathetic to things like that. But at the end of the year, what I told you was Ms. Day would get that information for you because this was the first year the state said you'd be able to supply that. Am I right?
By school, yes.
By school.
Is that this that we got at the
It's
last?
the green.
That's
Did you
right.
get this last meeting?
I did. I went by the next day and picked it up from Roberto.
But I want you to hear that. This is the first year the state said Ms. Day would be able to provide that. What Dr. Howard was able to provide Mr. Mims a couple of years ago took how much time?
A significant amount of time.
How much?
To create. I'm sure a couple weeks of time to create that.
So when the assumption is it's a matter of just pressing the button, this was the first year the department said you ought to be able to press the button. So once we went through closeout to closeout, because that magic date was the 28th of June, if I'm not mistaken, and then we had to get people paid and all of that, I clearly said to you, as soon as we get through that, please be patient. We promise we'll get that to you. She came in on her day off to hit that button, and she did, and what it looked like was a bunch of gibberish. So while they said we'd be able to do it, we could hit the button, but we really couldn't understand what was produced. And it took between 5 and 6 hours, is somewhere in there.
Yeah, probably 8. I'm saying 8 hours with the, as far as.
So I say that to say, and thank you for adding in on a Friday and came back in on Monday to create what you have here. And so it's not due to lack of effort, but it is due to just trying to work within what we have. We don't have a very large finance department, and our CPA finance director probably is the only person who could have done that. So we came true with it when we said we could come true with it, but had she not hit that button June 28th, we would have been out of compliance with DPI, but wouldn't have been paid right here at the end of the year. And I have to add, we almost didn't get people paid this year. We really didn't. We had a big old snafu, and she was in here on Sunday trying to get people paid and working back and forth with it. So I know it sounds easy. It just isn't as easy as it sounds.
And I understand her complaint, and I think I was patient. I asked for it in January 28th, asked for the cost by school data. And I did not say anything again until May. And in May, I just said, how are we doing? I didn't knock on your door. I didn't send you, I sent you one email in January, one email in May. The point is, we're in a position now, we've got all the things that the whole board's got to approve and all that. Basically, these are public records, and I can show you this UNC School of Government interpretation of General Statute Chapter 132, which talks about public records. And an agency, i.e. Granville County Schools, cannot deny a public record request simply because it involves one request requiring multiple public records to be consulted for the data. I'll be happy to send you that interpretation from UNC School of
So
Government.
who's supposed to do all that, Rob? If you don't have staff?
Well, then,
If
and
it
that's,
took Beth 5 hours to just do this, who in the world would be able to do it?
Tom, I've waited 7 months, and I would have waited
No,
another 2 months.
I'm talking about, you mentioned all this data is free. I mean, my understanding was the data that is readily available is easily given to somebody who asks for the information. To take and have to do all this complex putting together and so on and so forth, that's not really public information because it's not been created. Well, we're getting into the weeds, and there's.
But let me just finish the frustration here. Here's the deal. This board is tasked with the most difficult things a board has to do, and that is decide whether to close schools or not. This board, before I got on the board, relieved you of the responsibility of giving us any guidance, any advice,
That's
any
correct.
recommendation.
That is correct.
That means Dr. Winburn can't give us any advice or recommendation, Ms. Day can't give us
That
any
is
advice,
correct.
and Dr. Meyer can't. So we're on our own. The only way we can make the right decision, and if we make the wrong decision, it's catastrophic. The only way is to get data and figure it out. Now, the two pieces of data that I felt were essential for me to be able to make a vote were cost per school. If school A costs twice as much as school B, for whatever reasons, and you factor out the EC and the ESL, and you can do that, and you figure out, well, it's got all kinds of continuing infrastructure problems. They've got, small classes with, 13 and 213, like Toller did, 2 third-grade classes with 13 kids in it. Then those are reasons to close that school. The second issue on the LAD data is, do we even need to close schools? One of the things Dr. Winburn said at the meeting with the architect was that there's a sweet spot. Just because you can have 100% capacity, that may not be, and I'm sure you agree, may not be where you want to operate at 100%. Financially, it's the most efficient, but it may not be academically. The thing that the LAD data will allow you to do is you can parametrically evaluate. You can put in what ifs. Suppose we did 80% capacity. Suppose we did 70%. All right, we're going to now lose $400,000 a year. Well, is it worth losing $400,000 a year to not have to close a school and cause all of that trauma and disruption? So this is data in the absence of, and I have the highest respect for your ability to tell us what you need to do to run this school system. In the absence of that, we as a board have to be able to get information. And that is what we're in a situation now. I do not believe we will ever be able to close the school this year because we're not going to be able to have the information to understand and make the right decision prior to December. So it'd be kind of nice to know what financial penalty that brings on us. And the LAD data has been vetted, peer-reviewed, and it's high pedigree. So that is a way that we can kind of see what we're doing. I would love to get that LAD data, calculate it, and say, look, right now, based on closing Toller and Mary Potter, the penalty is only $1.2 million. I think the penalty is still going to be up around $1.7 million, which is about what we got to cut this year. So, at any rate, I'm done. That's why I'm trying to get this data, because it's important. And one of the things this board has not done over the years has not gotten the data and gotten the details in the data. And that's why I ran for this board. Now, if the board does not want to do that and is not going to support that, then tell me and I'll quit wasting your time and you can get somebody else. And I'm not threatening, I'm just saying if there's somebody else who will work more efficiently. But right now, as I've told Dr. Houlihan, I seriously doubt unless things change, I'll be here a year from now. So that is important because I can't do my job.
So
Yeah.
what you're saying is that if the board doesn't go along with what you want to do, that you're going to quit.
Tom, I'm saying I cannot do my job that I ran on, and you can look at my platform, it's in the back of my car.
But Rob, I mean, I understand that, and I told you my frustration of this body of the whole thing, because you just can't do anything.
Can't do
go out on
anything.
your own. But it is the way it is. I mean, what do we do? Let you go off and do all this kind of stuff, which I'm sure is very important in many ways, but we don't know what you're doing. We don't know the data and how you're using it. I mean, it's just so vague. I just don't know where to go with this.
Tom,
And I'm just, don't be critical of me. I'm seriously saying, I don't know where to, as a board member, I don't know where to go with all this.
Tom, do you not think it would be vital to know how much money, because we are at 56%, or we were last year at 56% capacity, how much money is literally up the chimney each year?
Well, let me put it to you another way. When we got ready to close Toller, you came up with a figure of $1,600 per child, that we would save. Now, that data that information became very public. And we talked about it at some point. I heard it was 1,400, whatever. We had to trust that whatever you did and however you figured it out was correct. Yet we really didn't know as a board what you came up with, whatever. We're not being critical of that. I mean, it's just, Rob, it just happened, and there's nothing wrong with you doing all that, but it really would be great if the board would support what you're doing.
Here's what I sent to Dr. McLean, who gave to the lady and to Mr. Blaine, and Mr. Blaine said, "That explains everything, thank you so much." Tom, I'll be happy to sit down with any board member at any time and go over the LAD algorithm. I'll be happy to do that. I'll be happy to sit down with anybody and go over the cost per school data and sit down and talk about it. Hey, is Mount Energy for some reason twice as much as the Tar River? Why is that? To me, this is important because we do have a budget crisis. I guess for 11 years, watching two children go through the school system and watching our school system go down year after year after year. And I've got the data. I got it all at home. I've got every single DPI drill down data for the past 11 years. And you can watch every year we go down. I watch that. And I watch the board make, in my opinion, some good and some ill-informed decisions. And I watch superintendents before you got here make some decisions that weren't so good that contributed to our decline. Regardless, we had been on a trajectory in the wrong direction. And our schools are not where they should be. And if anybody in this room thinks that 50% grade level proficiency is acceptable, I don't think it should be. I know you don't think it's acceptable. It shouldn't. That's not where we should be. So we got to do something. And I don't know, Tom, how to. I'm willing to put in the hours. I'm willing to do the research. I'm willing to come before the board and say, this is what I found out. And if you say, how'd you find that out? I'm willing to go through every single thing and explain it. And then you all can say, all right, well, that does us no good. Next.
Well, here's a specific example. You've used the term algorithm repeatedly. You used it in front of the county commissioners. I'm the first to admit that I have no idea what the word algorithm means. And I know I'm not the dumbest person in the world, and I doubt that many of the other board members know what that means. And that may be something that's fabulous and great and all that kind of stuff, but when you're out throwing around information like that, and you're assuming that we know that, but when you're out throwing out information like that, number one, it makes us feel stupid. And number two, when people ask about that, you just have to play it, I mean, that's just one example of the work you've done that, while very, very, in your mind, very good, the board as a whole doesn't even get into that, let alone, I mean, what does an algorithm mean?
It's a formula. It's simply a formula. And I'd be happy to explain that.
So it's a formula for what?
The LAD algorithm, and I call it an algorithm, the LAD report, and Doctor, you know what I'm talking about. The LAD report comes out with an equation. It's a methodology to get to that final equation. That final equation has, I think, maybe a half dozen parameters that come from these 12 points of data that I have 12 or 15 points of data. And you have to do some other behind the scenes calculating to get to the final equation. And that final equation, and there's actually several of them, but the main equation tells you the penalty per student for the traditional public school system because of charter schools and homeschooling, i.e. because we are no longer at a higher capacity and we're heating classrooms that are nearly empty. We are having small classrooms to make the state mandates for K through 3. All of that's factored in. And Helen Ladd came up with, I think, a brilliant way of capturing how you can determine what your waste is. So, and as I tried to explain at a board meeting, I said, this isn't money that the charter schools get, and it's not money that we get. It's money that literally goes up the chimney. 1.7 million a year based on extrapolated or estimated data from the 2015-16 data that Mr. Mims got. So I had to kind of estimate how that changed each year. So, I mean, this is what I did for 30 years. I mean, you know all about schools and being superintendent. I don't. I mean, but I do know this. So, and I'm happy to explain it to anyone. If the board wants to vote tonight and say, Rob, we don't give a rat's rear end about what the penalty is for having unused classrooms, then fine. If the board wants to say, we don't care what it costs per school, we're going to close the school anyway, then we'll vote it and say no. And I'll salute the flag and move on to something else. But I will tell you, I'm going to have high expectations. I'm going to challenge things. I'm going to ask for information. And, you know, if you say no, then you say no. You know, I can submit public records requests. I mean, or I can resign because, and I'm not using that as a if you don't get my way, I'm going to quit. The point is, if there's somebody better who you can work with, who this board can work with, then it's better for the board. You know, and I'm tired of losing sleep every night. I'm tired of waking up worrying about our performance. So quite frankly, if we can work together and we can figure it out, and then that's great. And if we can't, if that's the feeling of the board, then I'm not the appropriate person. I'm really not. Because this is who I am and how I was trained and how I was raised and what I care about. I can frankly do more to help the students off the board because I submit public records requests, which I've not done yet because I just didn't think it was polite. So, you know, I can go visit schools as a citizen, and if the principal is available, I can talk to him. You know, I have access. I can do things. Maybe that's the better way for me to go. I do not intend to disrupt this board, and I'm sorry that, you know, my being on this board has caused some of that. So it's not that I'm not going to get my way. I'm going to, you know, pick up my toys and go home. I'm just trying to say, if you all can do a better job without me, then do it. It's what's important for the kids and for the school district. And if I'm an impediment because of who I am, then I'll gladly step aside. I'm not here for any personal gain. So that's it. I just want to do my job. And Dr. McLean, I'll tell you right now, I promise you, I'm your biggest fan. Because if you succeed, the school system is succeeding. And if it succeeds, the kids are succeeding. And I know you're doing some great things. I am on your side. I want to contribute. I want to give information. And the board can decide whether they want it or not. And that's my piece.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Any other comments, Mr. Richardson? Mr. Peace? Mr. Mims?
Yes. I'd just like to say that I've listened to Mr. Peace over the years that I've been on the board. I listened to you. I talked to Mr. Udy. I'm just listening to Mr. Rivers. And as I sit here, I have trepidations as to the direction that this board is taking and what we're going to accomplish, if anything. Because when we look at the school district as a whole, we need to be doing a lot more than we are. And I've heard Mr. Richardson say, well, we come in and we talk about the same things over and over again. It would be nice to hear somebody say, we've accomplished something, so we move to something else. And I think that's one of the issues. We don't have any accomplishments to really show that we're making progress. And I think that has been basically why people in the community see such an issue with our school district. So the things that Dr. McLean is doing, whether it's online or what have you, these are some new ideas. This board hadn't come up with any new ideas since I've been. I mean, we waited for the superintendent to come in and bring an idea. I don't see any vision on this board. And I say I don't see any vision, and if somebody has some, tell me what it is. So we need some direction. And as a chair, and you've been the chair for the last 3 or 4 years, I look to the chair and I try to respect the chair and I address you as Mr. Chair when you recognize me or when I want to be recognized, because I want to show respect and I've done that. But I want to have some high standards and I want to have some direction. The military, we say, go take that hill is in that direction. Everybody's going in that direction. I can't tell you what this board is accomplishing. The whole idea of trying to come up with $2 million, close a school, whether it's going to be Tar River or Mount Energy, or try and convert Hawley or Creedmoor Elementary, we're all over the place. We're all over the place because we don't have specific guidance. And that's why we need the chair to lead.
Mr. Mims,
Yes.
you know, I can't think of the last time when you offered a positive direction or positive. All I hear, we hear so often, is blame, blame, blame. What have you done to bring a sense of direction as a board member?
I'll be more than happy to tell you. Mr. Uda and I attempted to sit down to gather information to bring into the board. I know I can't make a decision by myself. And I looked in here where, you decided to dissolve the committees. As a member of the finance committee, you asked me, and the positive thing, you particularly asked me to make sure that we reduce the staff in central office. You asked me.
What did we do? What happened? Well, we're not going to go there. All right.
So you asked me to say something. I'm telling you, I followed your orders when I was on the finance committee.
Well,
don't back off. You said,
Mr.
You
Mims,
asked
what
me-
happened when you got on the committee? You literally wanted to go in all kinds of different directions because you thought
but
no,
the
I'm
committee
not gonna
voted
go
on
there.
it, the board voted on it, and things were changed. Dr. Houlihan, that's the problem. I think
Yeah, it is
that
a real
the
problem. I
problem
agree,
is
it's a
we
big
need
problem.
some guidance. And you haven't provided the guidance as a chair.
And you're all over the place anyway. Who
It-
knows
it-
where you are?
But if you give
You
us some
come to the
guidance, I
meeting
can
and you
follow.
can be one way, and then you come to the. All right, you made your point. Other comments? No.
I do.
Please.
I was listening to, Mr. Rivers talk about the need for information, and I understand the information is needed. And I also heard him say that we need to work together. And I feel like sometimes we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit. If we need information, what is wrong with asking the board to work together to find that information? That might be simplistic, but, I'm just wondering why that's an issue.
I'd like to respond to you. Because we have disparate backgrounds. And the idea that the board even has an idea of what it wants to accomplish has not been established. We talked about we need to do something on the southern end. what information do we need in order to do something on the southern end?
But if somebody feels strongly that, we need this information to move forward, what's wrong with coming to the board and saying, I think we need this information, and this is why we need that information, and then the board coming together and saying, okay, we need to get that information.
You didn't just hear that this evening?
What I heard was, he kinda went off on his own and got it. I mean, is that not?
No, it's not true. I sent an email to the board, to Dr. McLean, copied the board. We talked about the February meeting, and I asked for the lab data, and I'd asked for the cost per school data, and I had an email from Dr. McLean copying the board that she said, I want to make sure everybody knows I've approved this request. I don't know. I don't feel like I've just gone off my own and demanded stuff. I have to ask.
Please read it. Could you read it?
The January 28th email?
I don't know, I only have one from February sixth.
January 28th is the one that's important.
I'll notify HR and finance that you want this data. But please know our staff are simply swamped with their
That's what
daily
I
job
said.
responsibilities.
That was in response to the lad request. This
It
cost per
is.
school data was January 28th. And you stated, you copied it, said, I'm copying Dr. Houlihan and Mr. Richardson to let them know that I have approved this request.
And you have that now. You have that.
I know the point was it took 7 months,
Well,
and you're right, I do have that. And the point is it going to be this hard in the future? And if the policy is if you want something, you come to a board meeting and you wait a month. If on September 10th something happens at a school and I think it'd be nice to have this information, and I've got to wait till October 4th,
Rob, what happens if we don't really care about that
then
information?
tell me.
Well, we can't tell you until the board as a whole responds to your request.
Or can we do it by email?
You can't make board decisions by email, it's a violation of the open meetings law.
And you wonder why, Tom, we can't get anything done. I mean, we're putting such impediments on fast progress. I mean,
And
America.
so what do you think we do about that? Do we not follow what the state law is? Do we not follow the provision in Dr. McLean's contract? I mean,
Well, that's why we're having this meeting, to come up with what we're going to do. And I'm going to salute the flag no matter
I know
what we
you
decide.
are. Yeah, I know you are.
But I'm going to argue my case until we have a decision.
But I question, and I think you've got all the integrity in the world. My question about that is that you're going to salute the flag and move on. Well, I felt like we had this conversation already. It goes back to we've talked about this stuff of coming to the board and doing this. So is it 6 months down the road that we're having the same conversation again because you're frustrated about that piece of the role? And not you, me too. I mean, what if I come back and say, well, I just want to know how much chocolate milk we sell? I mean, it's stuff like that I mean, time and time again, we decide of how to function as a board. And time again, we come back and have the same conversation.
I'd like to ask a question, and I certainly understand what you're saying, Mr. Richardson, but I guess how do we move forward with requesting information to determine what the footprint of the schools of the Granville County School District should be? Should all of our requests be in a formal work session or
Well, I
meeting?
feel like is that going to be answered in the study? Would it not that we've commissioned?
I'm not sure what questions we asked in the study.
What?
I mean, we've got the options that they're studying about G.C. Hawley. I mean, that's the next step. We've kind of said we're going to look at these 4 or 5 questions in that G.C. Hawley
So
study.
the point is, so are we going to have the architect to decide for us, or are we going to decide as a board?
We're going to do it the same way we did it with Joe Toller and Mary Potter. We got the data, we got the study, we made the decision.
Well,
Then
you missed
Hawley
a
would do
step.
the
We
same.
got the study. We asked for more information if we needed it, and then it came back. The other night when we were talking about the southern end, the impression I got is some of us thought we had all the information we needed. Well, I disagree, which sounds like maybe you're disagreeing too, that we still need more information. I think you're right. Yeah, we come back as a group and decide what do we need to need each go around. And it sounds like it's just frustrating that it does take a month to do that. But that's why we have another work session, I guess, scheduled. It's every other week you can bring a request back. The other side is that we forget is we don't have a paid researcher on staff. We keep asking for all this stuff, but we forget that these 4 people have a school district to run. I mean, they've got jobs we've given them, and we just keep piling more and more things they've got to go fish out and find for us. And that's not anybody's fault. I think it's just the world we live in and the constraints of us being a board.
But Mr. Richard, I have not asked for anything since February 6th. So, I mean, your comment that we just keep asking and keep demanding is just that's not true. What happened most recently was in June, I sent another email asking for the lab data because it's getting up close to where we got to make a decision whether to close the Southern Elementary School. And Dr. McLean responded that there had been a process that the whole board had to approve it. And then I responded by sending those emails that said, you've already told me you're going to give me this data. I'm confused. So I'm not keep bringing it back and back. That's where this all came from, is I simply ask again after 5 months for the lab data because we're approaching the time we've got to decide if we're going to close the Southern School. And it had already been, I thought, and perhaps I misunderstood Dr. McLean, but I thought from her email that it had been, you will get it in a couple of weeks. And I hadn't gotten it. And then it was, well, we have a new process. And quite frankly, and I guess I just somehow missed it in board docs, I never recall seeing that memo, but I do recall talking about the committees. But it's my error if I didn't.
Well, go to the April 2nd
Yeah, I will.
meeting.
I mean,
March 25th.
No, was it March 25th?
It's in the minutes from March 25th. I don't know if you discussed.
All I
it.
know is I looked at the video on,
April 1st.
it's April 1st, and it's about 33 minutes in. It's during discussion.
And I just
As all
forgot.
of you, okay.
But I didn't recall a process, because I think we would have voted on
All right, let's take it a little bit, if we can, a little bit further in terms of getting out of some of this. You guys have talked this through and all that kind of stuff, and you don't get what you need, you come back to us, whatever. Rob, you are so bright, and you have so much to bring to this table. But and you and I have had a long conversation about performance, and we've talked about that when West Oxford many months ago, and we talked about we've got to get performance moving. We know this, we know this, we know this, we know this. But we all would agree that we basically have spent the last 6 months. We never talk about kids. We never talk about performance. We're dealing with one issue after another that don't. We've got a lot done in terms of facilities, but I mean, Ed wants a direction. Ed wants whatever. Well, performance is the direction. Our superintendent, we're not in charge of that. The superintendent is. And here we are now moving into performance in a way that I don't think anybody could have anticipated to go in this direction. And she's embracing. My point is, when are we going to stop talking about stuff that isn't related to student achievement? Stuff that doesn't require us to approve, like a field trip or whatever. When are we going to start as a board getting into that? Because collectively, we're just not doing it.
I agree.
And that's my frustration. But we keep getting bogged down with this, that, or the other. And I think the first way we go as a board is to agree that we're going to start focusing on kids, not adults.
Well, Dr. Houlihan, and I appreciate that comment. However, I would say that the adults have a significant input into what we do in our school district. When we began to look at infrastructure, when Dr. McLean addressed the water issue, because parents approached her and said, hey, we got an issue here. When we talked about goals and performance and having one goal, it's almost like I interpreted the discussion that infrastructure and performance were mutually exclusive. And that's why I ultimately made the statement that if we don't do something about our infrastructure, you're gonna be homeschooling everybody. And the point is, you can't have an environment that's not conducive to learning. And part of the board's responsibility is to make sure that we have the facilities to whereby when the teachers and the students show up, they can all give their best. And that's all we want. I mean, just like the rest of you, don't have to be here. I'm here because I want to make a difference. And I'm willing to give my 2 cents, whether you agree with it or not. But I think I have enough experience to whereby I can offer some valuable comments. You don't have to take them, but I'm willing to offer them. And I have done that since I've been on this board. Now, all I want to do is to see some accomplishments. So whether it's not Dr. McLean, I like to see some accomplishments from the board that we can tick off. Yes, we did this, we did that, we did that.
What's a specific accomplishment you want the board to do?
What specific? I like to see us have a footprint going forward that will provide the students in Granville County the best opportunity to be competitive when they complete the school system. Now, is that too broad a goal? What kind of equipment, what kind of system, what kind of infrastructure do we need to whereby students feel like they're in the 21st century? If you're talking about CTE, you know, we don't want it raining in there to where you can't use some of the equipment. We want the facility to be useful. So that's what I'd like to see.
And that's the board's responsibility, to have infrastructure and all that. Is that not administration bringing that information to us?
I thought we relieved the superintendent of having to make those kinds of decisions. So if the superintendent is not doing it, I guess
that's I don't understand what you're relating the superintendent to the
well,
conversation.
Mr. Ripper said that we authorize the superintendent not to have to be involved in any of the footprint designation or requirements.
Which you voted for.
So if the superintendent is not doing that, who else is going to do it, if not the board?
What do you consider a footprint? I missed all that. So.
Buildings, infrastructure, equipment, the things that are necessary to basically have the school district that is going to provide that education that we all expect kids to have.
What about the 5-year master facility plan?
What about it?
Why would that not qualify for what you're talking about?
You didn't get money for this year's master facility plan. You're talking 5 years.
Dr. Allen, I think what he's asking is, what we need to know is, how many schools do we need? How many elementary schools do we need? How many laboratories do we need? How many athletic facilities? How many libraries? Do we need media consultants? We don't have libraries in most librarians in most of our media centers. Is that important or not important? These are all questions that we need to know to make us into a good school system. And we, unless we ask for information, we can't get that. Now we've asked for this footprint. We've asked for what Dr. McLean, and I want to give it to her. What does she want? What's her vision that this is what you give me this, and we are going to have good results? You know, and I understand the board voted on that. The other thing, Tom, I'll say, we're going to vote on things and we're going to make mistakes. Like you said, and I thought one of the most prescient things you said Monday night when you were talking to Dr. McLean, you said, try things and don't worry if they don't work. We don't learn unless we try things that don't work. I say the same thing goes for this board. I have voted for things in this board that I looked at 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the road and said, you know, I wish I hadn't voted that way. I made a mistake. We have made votes in this board since I've been on it, or since before I got on it, but was coming to the meetings. that I thought were mistakes. That's fine. We're only human. If we make a mistake, then let's be willing enough to pivot and say, whoops, we did that, it's not going to work. Just as we're telling Dr. McLean, if you try something and it doesn't work, that's fine, because you tried something, it was well thought out, and we learn now from this, that it's not the best idea. Same thing with the board. So just because you say you voted for that, Mr. Mims may say, well, yeah, and I voted wrong. And I may say, I voted wrong. So let's make a new motion. Let's rescind it, or let's try something else. There's nothing wrong with admitting we made a bad vote.
Well, there's nothing wrong with saying that that I or other board members don't agree with what Mr. Mims just said.
Oh, absolutely. And this is a discussion. We're just letting it out in the open.
Okay, I go. Well, Mr. Mims wasn't. He told me I was worthless.
Well, I didn't
I'm
quite
just
use
kidding.
those words,
I
but
don't
if you'd
think
like
I've heard
me
that.
to describe you, I would
I
like
would
to
not
get
look-
clear guidance
I
from
would
you.
not. I really
Well, if you
I
don't
really
care, then I
don't.
do that.
I really don't care because I just really
And
don't care.
and that feeling is mutual.
Can
No
I ask one more question? Isn't it this board's responsibility to support the superintendent and support her staff and trust them that they know what they're doing? I mean, maybe I'm being idealistic, but
No, that's exactly
isn't that what we're
correct.
supposed
That's
to do?
exactly what a school board's supposed to. Policy, budget, and personnel. And we're not to get into any more of the details. That's not our job. That's state law.
Well, that's
so why
not true.
aren't we doing that?
Lynn, that's not true. We saw it with Tim Farley. The board ended up forcing Tim Farley to resign because they had given him too much money. Now, here's the thing. We can't
But
just
that was
support,
then,
and
this is
Dr. McLean,
now.
don't take this the wrong way. If Dr. McLean does something just dumb, it's our obligation to our constituents that we say, Dr. McLean, you might want to rethink this. Okay, we are not just supposed to support her blindly. She says, I want to go up there and have, everybody have a shirtless Tuesday. Wait a second, I don't think it's a good idea, Dr. McLean. Let's rethink that. That doesn't mean we're not supporting her, but it also doesn't mean we don't blindly. I think Dr. McLean would appreciate the fact that we critically look at your ideas and concepts, give you input or not, and then you say, oh yeah, Mr. Rivers, thank you for saying it. However, you're missing this. Great, Dr. McLean, you're absolutely right. Full speed ahead. Supporting doesn't mean hands off.
Yeah, I get
Well,
that.
and then let me just add one other thing that you heard the other night when we were talking goals, and I asked about a baseline, and I said I would like to know what the state average is and the goal. Dr. McLean sat over and she was taking notes and taking the information down.
Right.
So it wasn't that I disapproved or didn't agree with what she said, but I wanted to see a different vantage point. And I would like to hope every board member would have benefited from knowing that information.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't offer some input, but I'm saying, let her lead the wagon. And
That normally would be okay. But you've heard time and time again where she's exonerated from having to make the infrastructure decisions. So if she doesn't make them, who makes them?
Well, I'll be honest. Some of this is new news for me tonight. And it's been interesting to hear.
I think you
What
should.
is?
It is.
What new news have you heard?
Exonerated from infrastructure
Well,
decisions.
didn't you say that
because
she's
Yeah.
not?
what was
Yeah.
said initially
Mhm.
was I would not be involved in the consolidation or school closure decision. That's what I was relieved of, because the board would be taking care of that. I'm very clear that the maintenance, the infrastructure, all of that is still a part of the work. That's why I also said the other night, whether it's a goal or not, you can trust that this staff is going to do everything we need to do to make sure we don't come back around to mold, to make sure we don't come back around to some of the stuff we've had to deal with. Yes, I feel like the cleanup woman for the past 2 years. I'm sure Stan is the cleanup man, Dr. Martin, we've all had to do things that were not necessarily pleasant. But you're right, infrastructure and the manner in which our environment and our culture for these students to come to is right up there with oxygen. It is. And I think it's a responsibility we all must hold as serious as the academic performance, or people are not going to trust us with their babies. They are not. So I also heard a comment the other night that just is sitting right here. It disturbed me a little bit. But I'll be honest, I don't do what I do every morning until midnight some nights for folk. I do it for the children. I need to be really honest. Safety is never going to stop being the top priority. It's just not. Whatever that means every day. It's just not. So we're going to talk about academics, but if those children aren't safe, we don't even get to academics. They have to feel safe. They must be mentally safe. They must, we're going to deal with whatever those children and teachers need every day so that they can deliver instruction and the children can receive instruction. The beautiful thing about academics, I was talking with one of my mentors right after we had our meeting, and I said, we're talking about, and I'm grappling with growth versus proficiency. And he said, and I know you're smart enough not to give them a number because that's how superintendents get fired. I said, you're right, I am. Won't be doing that. I said, but I do want to talk about the growth because that's what we always talk about, because I don't have the same children I had 5 years ago, and I don't have the same children we had 10 years ago. You all know as well as I do, they're gone. So the comparison in the data has to be about who we have right now in Granville County. And we're going to grow them, and we're going to make sure they have the very best education we can give them. Now the question is, what does that mean? And this is where I totally agree with you, Mr. Mills. What does that mean to this board? I love it when I ask superintendents, so tell me what your goal is. It's my board's goal. We have the same goal. I'm sort of glad I'm here tonight because I do want to know, so what is your goal as a board? I want my goal to align with yours.
It's
I
pretty
have
simple what the goal is.
What is our goal?
Performance.
My goal is to be the best school district in the state. That's my goal.
But when
What concerns me about your word performance is I've heard that word used in several different contexts just tonight.
But her job is to take what we agreed to,
which is to increase.
yeah, and to work it out so that we'll be able to see it, and then we'll be able to say this, that, or the other. This goal is our direction because the board and the superintendent to date has come to a mutual agreement, and by our evaluation system, it is a joint goal.
It's a joint.
Not just her goal or the board's goal. It's a joint goal.
I loved hearing a superintendent friend of mine. We're nowhere near this. Last year we talked about dual language and wanting buildings that prepare kids for when they leave here and all of that. I said, so what is your goal? She said, in our district, I know my job is to make sure every child when they leave can speak 2 languages. That's what the board and I believe. When they leave here, they can speak 2 languages, and it starts in pre-K. That got my wheels going, because my babies are going to compete against that. My kids are competing against that, and it starts in pre-K. I asked another superintendent, what is your goal? Oh, we only have 2. One goal is that our children know how to read on a college level when they leave our school system. That's the goal. That's the academic performance goal, that they can read on a college level when they leave. I love it. But I'd love for us to spend some quality time together, like talking about things like that, so that our educators hear us talking that language, our parents hear us talking that language, our students hear us talking that language. It's sort of like raising children at home. And Mari has to hear Frank and I talking about that stuff, so she knows that that's important at home. I'd just love to be able to do that with you all.
And that really is a great example of both of groups working together to set the direction.
That's what I
So
As I sit around this table and talk and listen and talk, you know, student success is what sort of comes to mind, and I find myself asking the question to myself, now what have we talked about in the last 20, 30 minutes or an hour that has to do with that? And a lots of time what we are talking about doesn't have anything to do with it. Now, some things we have to do, you might not say, well, it didn't affect the students and the success of them. But if you're talking about buildings, if you're talking about condition of buildings, if they are environmentally conducive to learning, I mean, all that's a part of student success. So, and it shouldn't take forever for this board to realize and be able to work together to do that. You know, we talk about, you know, when I was sitting here listening, I'm thinking what we really need is taxing authority. We could do a lot more, but, you know, I've been had that in my head for about 15 years now, so we don't need to go there, really not today. But if you think about our budget is 90-some million, up to, and we really don't have any money. We get it from somewhere. School system get it from state, the local, the feds, donations, contributions, whatever. We don't have any money. So it hinders some of the things that we would like to do that we can't do because nobody works for nothing. And if you hire somebody to work for nothing, you would have a poor ass job done. And I just, you know, we just need to think about where we are and what we're doing to move us from where we are now to where we want to be.
Could I make a motion?
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can I make a motion that we rescind the motion that prevented Dr. McLean from speaking to us about what she needs to do her job, i.e. how many schools, what schools? I think that would be, just from what you said, was so powerful. If we could have these conversations where you could freely say, look, we don't want to close anything because we're gonna this is gonna happen. Or I need $2 million more a year. Where am I gonna get it? Well, you might be able to get it by closing some schools. I think these are the conversations that I would love to have because, Dr. McLean, you are the ranking expert. You are the one who knows more about this school district than anyone else, and certainly more than anyone on this board. If we can't tap that brain of yours and that resource of yours to help us, we run the risk of making a bad decision. And I just don't think we can afford to make a bad decision. Not with exodus to charter schools, not with performance as a goal. The last thing we want to do is close the wrong school or close a school we don't need to close. And I'm pleading with this board. I have so much respect for Dr. McLean's knowledge and her talents. I want to tap that. I want her advice. I want her to say, Mr. Rivers, this is why we want to keep Wilton open. Or this is why you don't even want to think about closing Butler STEM Elementary. So that we, and she can provide us all the data, and I won't have to ask for it. That would solve a lot of problems.
If I could make a comment, sort of in your defense, Dr. McLean, but then sort of pro and con. One, if you make that motion, I would be prone to second it, okay, because I concur. She has more insight into what is needed for this school district than the totality of this board.
Yep.
However, I also understand, Dr. McLean, that superintendents don't typically like to tread in that territory because that's one way that you would be looking for work.
I'll be out of here.
Absolutely.
And that's why we did that.
That's right.
So, but there's a way around that. There's a way around it. She can still provide us information. She can still discuss things without giving necessarily an overt opinion. But she can certainly help us.
Can that be done informally?
I don't see why not.
I mean, yes, sir.
Can I give you an example that it doesn't work well?
Okay.
She brings a budget to us, we tear it apart, and then we hold her responsible for it. We ask her to go to the commissioners to bring more money. We get mad when it's not the money we want. We forget the fact she brought 15 million. I don't know that it could be accomplished. Because I think we're setting her up to, it would be we could be informed all day long, but it would still be her fault.
Being between the rock and the hard place is our place to be.
It's not.
But she's good enough
We
for
don't
that.
need to put her
I have
I
confidence
don't
in you,
want to
Dr.
be there.
McLean. I have confidence in you.
I don't want to be there.
They didn't want to do it in Warren County.
I don't want to be there. I don't want to
I
be
don't
there.
know a superintendent state where they,
But who's better qualified?
We're missing.
I
out.
mean,
we just talk informally,
I'll talk informal.
informally,
I
you
feel
know.
like that, I mean, the studies we get, if you read them, it gives you some of the information you need. I mean, that's what we're asking them to do.
And sometimes the decisions that you make may not be the perfect decision, but what's the alternative? I mean, Toller is a great example. None of us wanted to close that school. Ed had the courage to make that motion, and I know that was tough. But if we didn't do that, what would we do? Where will we get the $500,000 a year that we were spending?
We needed money.
Yeah, and what are we going to do with those kids as it gets smaller and smaller and smaller? I mean, it's not necessarily a great decision, but Rob, what else could we have? I mean, we're in a hard spot.
Oh, I agree. No,
In the southern end, and doing what we did at Mary Potter. I mean, you know how tough that was, but they were down to whatever number of kids. The point I'm making is that as we get into the South, Ed knows the schools, Danny knows the schools, David knows the schools. You know, this is something to talk about what the board should do. This is something the board takes the lead on, in my direction or my thinking.
Well,
And Ed, wait a minute. In terms of our direction, I think this board has done a very good job of dealing with school closures and all that, which is one of the worst things any board should have to deal with. And I think we should be proud of what we accomplished, at least so far in that situation. And I'm confident we can make the decision about what to do in the southern part of the county. And I'm confident that it'll be pretty much together. We just need to go through our studies.
Is there any reason I can't open that door? Just to make it clear that we're in open session. I don't think anybody's here.
So, we're going to get back to roles, rule, and
Well, I think this has been
responsibility.
helpful.
It has been. Now, the last thing on the agenda, and we won't beat this to death, but we need to come together regarding requests for data and coming to the board or whatever. I mean, we need to formalize that. As a board, we need to formalize this one way or the other. Do we expect a board member who individually wants to look at data and do some analysis, etc.? Do we just let them go straight to the superintendent, or do they need to come to the board as a body of the whole? That's the key thing that we need to decide initially. Let's anybody, I mean,
In my view, humble opinion, I think whether it's equations or algorithms, and I was telling you today, I had to make a mixture for my weed eater, and I had to go back to algebra and do some calculating and so forth. Some of the things that Mr. Rivers has done as a project manager and project officer, I'm not sure all of the board members would even be familiar with. How to come up with that, to derive the information that would be meaningful. So we would never request that information in the first place. And I think that would be a shortcoming. In other words, let's use the expertise that he brings to the table. It's just like Mr. Udy. I turned to Mr. Udit at the last meeting and told him I was a juror, but I didn't want to serve on the jury. What should I do? And he gave me some advice, and I really didn't have a chance to. I was released from the jury, so I didn't have a chance to do it. And I thought I had a very, very good reason. But the fact was, we have certain expertise in here. And I don't think we've tapped it. We haven't come close to tapping the expertise that we have in this room. And I think that has been one of the greatest shortfalls of this board, not using the expertise that we have.
What would be wrong to come back to us as a group and say, can I use you for example? What if Lynn decides she's going to start writing press releases for us because that's her expertise? I would have preferred to her come back and talk to us before she did that.
No, not going out to the public, whatever. Any one of those committees that was formed knew that it had to come back to the board first to discuss. I mean, I can't imagine a committee going straight to the press or going out to the public and based on whether you say Mount Energy feeling as though the board had issues and so forth. I'm not sure where they were getting that from. They were obviously getting it from someplace, but it's not the board's place. I don't go out and discuss what the decisions that we make as a board until we have made them. I mean, while we're discussing them, they're still I have no idea how the decision is going to turn out. So yes, we bring our thoughts back to the board. And there's nothing wrong with filling the board in or informing the board what you want. But my goodness, and I mentioned to Mr. Rivers, my wife and I wrote a check to Tar River Elementary School about 3 years ago to fund the spelling bee individual to go to the National Spelling Bee. They didn't send someone that year, and I got a call saying, what would you like us to do with the money? And we said, keep it. It was for the school. But I didn't go before anybody and say, hey, can I write Tar River Elementary a check to support the spelling bee?
This is a little bit different situation. He is a person is, and it's not Rob.
Okay.
A board member is collecting information and coming up with a result that becomes public, i.e. the cost per student or whatever, and that's just an example. And that all is public information. And if the board, number one, doesn't understand it, which is very easy, that could easily happen, or data or information is being thrown out, and we don't know, no offense to you, but we don't know the accuracy of that. We don't know what's been used. It's no longer something that's about an individual. It's about the fact that all this is public. It's out there. And what do we do? Can you imagine if we had 3 or 4 Rob Rivers wanting to collect information or data, which could happen. I mean, how do we ever expect staff to keep up with all this? You know, and all I'm trying to do is to figure out how we move forward so that Mr. Rivers or whomever or any board member simply brings the request to the full board. I don't see what's wrong with that. It is the board of the whole, and I see nothing. I mean,
in December, if you look at the minutes, and I reviewed the minutes, in December, my first meeting here, we talked about this, and we talked about what Allison Schaefer said. She said there was absolutely nothing wrong with a board member submitting on his own or her own a public records request. Basically, not a public records request, but asking for public records.
Sure.
If the board member wanted a study or some huge effort, then that should come before the board. And the board can either say yay or nay. And that's basically what I've done and what I did in January and February. The February meeting is when we talked about the lab data. All right, and then their email went out. The January 28th email to Dr. McLean was in response to a discussion we had, I believe, at December or the January meeting about getting the cost of school data. Dr. McLean acknowledged that it had been an approved request. Okay, so that's the only things that, and then the flags, I mean, that was said at a board meeting. So I don't see that I'm going off on my own, just bombarding Dr. McLean with data requests. The 3 data pieces I asked for were all known to the board, and nobody objected. So I don't see the problem. I don't see the problem. I've not asked for anything since, and quite likely, I probably won't.
Well,
I mean, so I just don't, I think this is a solution in search of a problem. I think I follow the rules. I understand if the staff is busy. I understand that. At some point, priorities have to be set. And if it's something we need to make a decision on closing a school, somehow we're going to have to figure it out. And again, I am more than happy to come to the office and sit down with somebody in finance if they have a few free minutes and say, can I look at these records or can I get this information? There's nothing I really want now with the lab data. So if, I think that's the matter at hand, that has already been approved. If that's not the case, the board don't want to give it to me, it'll save me hours and hours of calculating.
so
And you won't have information.
do you not think that perhaps we need to take one of our board policies, add something related to this, so it's in policy so that we never have to have this conversation again?
I don't think so. I mean, nothing's been asked for since February 6th.
But what if you come up with something next month, or next year, or next
Bring
week?
it before the board and say, I would like to look at this. Okay? If it's a simple public record request,
That's my
I will
question,
send it to Dr.
no
McLean.
doubt.
And if she says, well, wait a second, bring it before the board, and I might say, well, Dr. McLean, it's just a simple public record. I think we handle how we did it in December. If it gets to be a problem, let me know. But I mean, I really and truly haven't asked for anything since February, so I just don't understand, this kerfuffle we're involved in. But that's my 2 cents.
Okay, sure. So, where do we go from here?
Well, the only question I think is pending is, do I get the lab data or not? And I'm more than happy to sit down with Ms. Day at her convenience when she has a free moment in the next month or so, because I just think it's important we get it this fall, like maybe early fall. I think it'd be great. And I can sit down with her with the lab report and say, can we get this? And if she says, I can't give you that, then
Rob, how long do you think it will, just a rough estimate of time it will take to get the data you need for the land study?
if I sit down with Ms. Day, I think that we could pull it out in a half an hour.
Okay.
Now, and I could end up, Ms. Day, we might get in there, and after 10 minutes, it might be, this is going to take a heck of a lot longer, in which case we come back to the board and say, look, Ms. Day says it's going to take 8 hours of her time. Is it valuable enough to understand what our costs are to put this burden on her? And if the board says it's not valuable enough, I've done all I can do.
That's
I move
fair.
on.
That's fair.
And I think, if I may, Dr. Ullin, I think that's an excellent point. Is it valuable enough to the board? And I'm prepared, Dr. Ullin, to make a motion that he get access. And if the board votes it down and says, no, we don't want it, then he doesn't get it. And the board will have said, they will have stated, that we don't think the information is valuable enough, so he shouldn't get it. If you'd like to go that way, Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to make a motion.
Okay, anybody can make a motion. Is there a second?
But let me just sort of state it plainly. I move that Mr. Rivers be given access to the lab data that he's requesting.
Okay, is there a second? Is there a second? All right, it's open for discussion.
I have a question And my question is, when you get to the bottom line in your, work and bring whatever that is to the board, what benefit it's going to have for us as a whole board?
That's a good question.
Yes, it is.
It's a very good question, Mr. Peace. It's the crux of all of this. The Ladd report, basically, Ellen Ladd and her co-author, can't remember his name, came up with a method to figure out, quote unquote, the charter school penalty, which is chartered homeschool losses.
I understand all of that. But my question is, this is gonna tell us how much it costs per student, per school, based on the information that you're gonna get from her, right?
Yes, sir. Well, not from her. She's already
From
written
the
this report.
study.
Yeah, from the study. From using that equation, it will be able to tell us fairly accurately that based on our current capacity, it was 56% last year. We'll know the 2-week ADM. We'll know pretty much where we are. We'll know what our capacity is, and we'll know what our actual ADM is. And based on that, we should have a very good idea of how much money we're losing. We're just losing up the chimney. And armed with that, we might decide, we do not need to close a Southern Elementary School this year.
Wait a minute. See, you are taking me to where I'm not asking you to go.
Oh, okay.
We have, 20 schools, 18 schools? And I wanna know if your report's going to say this district is losing X number of dollars as a result of this. That's all I wanna know.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir, it should.
And don't, all that other stuff that I don't understand, there's no point in you explaining that to me at this point.
Yes, sir. It should give us that information.
It's like a plant manager,
It's
knowing how much each one of their facilities costs to operate.
It should help us have a pretty good idea how critical it is to close another school, which I think is pretty important. If it comes out that it's because of what we've done with Mary Potter and Joe Toller, that the penalty is not as great as I think it is, then the board can sit there and look at it, and I'll be happy to go through every step. You can send it out to, somebody who's a math major or whatever, and have them double check the figures, whatever. If I'm wrong, call me on it. But if we, as a board, agree that the figure is accurate, and the figure is such that we don't think we can financially sustain it, then the only way to get rid of that penalty is to close the school. If the penalty is not that great, then we might say, as you said, Mr. Peace, we don't want to rush into closing a southern school. We might say, we got some breathing room. That's all I'm saying. To me, that's pretty darn important. But again, if the board doesn't want that, then it'll save me a lot of time, and we can move on to other things. So,
I call for the questions.
Can I ask, I don't know if this is like, I don't know if I want to amend his motion, but what I'd like to give consideration to is that it not exceed 8 hours of Ms. Day's time, and that it's posted to board docs first, so that we can review it before we walk into a meeting, so we're not doing this again. Because I just think that gives us time to come in and be prepared for it.
the results you're talking about, once you get the data.
Once you're done,
calculated.
that it's posted to board docs, and I don't know if this is legal, tell me, Ms. Dubison. I'd really like it so that we can read it first before it's public knowledge.
Sure we can. Sure we can.
It could be just emailed to board members.
Yeah,
If
sure we
you
can.
get a public records request for it, you would need to respond to that. But you do not need to proactively go out and disseminate it.
I would like us to have a chance to kind of digest it, and then us come to the meeting to hear, how did he get there, what's the result, blah, blah, blah. 10, 15-minute presentation, whatever, just because I want to make sure.
Is this all your stuff?
This is what I'm saying is I don't know how to do this, but I mean, my biggest concern is let's not exceed 8 hours of Ms. Day's time, and let's make sure that we have time to review it before we're asked to act on it.
I will accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, will you second it?
Yes, sir. And I'd like to ask Ms. Dubison, can I send individual emails to a board member and it be a little bit less of a public record? Okay.
Say that, oh, yeah, you're right.
It's all a public record. Now, again, that doesn't mean you have to take out a press release.
Yes.
I was just gonna say the same thing that Mr. Richardson did, because once it's out there in the public and they start asking questions about how did you derive that, they're not gonna understand it either, and then it's gonna be all convoluted, so, to me, it's a public thing.
I mean, in looking back at the minutes, part of the discussion was that you were gonna meet with Dr. Ladd. Is that no longer gonna happen?
Dr. Houlihan tried and she never responded to
Never
him.
respond. I think she's retired. I think that study was done, how long
About
ago?
2 years ago. Ms. Duberson found it, and I applaud
Yeah.
you for finding
Okay,
it.
just 2 years?
Wasn't much
It was
more than
about
that.
2 years ago, but she's not a full-time teacher.
No, and she, who knows?
It was a good thought that I was hoping, my pipe dream was that she would
Okay,
come to Granville
all right,
County.
all right,
Yeah.
wait a minute, let's back up. Now, have you made, that's a friendly amendment, right?
I accept it and I call for the question.
And he,
I second.
a second, and, unless I'm wrong with Robert's Rules of Order, if you call for the question, it takes a 2/3 vote to approve it, or we can continue with
It
discussion.
takes a majority, I believe, to approve calling the question. Now,
That's what, yeah.
this board hasn't been a stickler about that, but it also, generally if someone calls a question and someone else is not done, you have not.
I would like to just ask Mr. Richardson a question. Why 8 hours? And do we expect staff to spend a whole day on it, collecting this data?
I just came up with a number because I don't want her to spend 3 weeks doing it.
Do you have any idea, Rob, roughly how many hours it would be?
I think Ms. Day and I working together could do it in a half an hour. If she just does it, why don't we say 4 hours?
Okay, yeah. Will you accept 4 hours instead of 8 hours?
I'll accept 4
All
hours.
right, and will
Yes,
you
sir.
accept it? Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Long way of getting there, but we got to where we needed to go in terms of a good resolution.
The nice thing was everybody contributed.
Okay, anything else?
Just a question on something else. Will we have a retreat or anything like that, I guess, anytime soon? Because I don't want to bring it up now, it's 8 o'clock. So the idea of having some other things to discuss. And I think an atmosphere other than a formal meeting would probably be most appropriate.
It probably wouldn't be until after school starts.
That's okay.
She's okay.
That's okay.
Okay. All right.
No, it would still have to be a public meeting. But
Oh, no, I don't
you can take your
yeah.
ties off.
mind it being public. It's just,
Okay. Anybody else? Looks so serious and so mad and whatever. Well, I hope what comes out of this meeting is some of us have said exactly what we felt about others and that kind of stuff. Now let's put this behind us. Let's move forward. I think this thing we often forget is that there are a lot of people watching what we do. And it's not just the community, it's the people who work in the school system, it's you folks. And right now, I would say that the feeling about our board in general is that we're split. We talked about that before, And it's okay to be split. It's okay not to go in the same direction, but hopefully we'll all be able to work. We'll respect one another. I think we can. I think we will. And I think we need to think about other people who are watching us and kids and that kind of thing and move forward so that we will not be asked at one time, what side are you on? These 3 or that 3, or these 4 and that 3. And I hope we can move on, because it would be nice to have the community and the students and teachers be proud of us. Because let's face it, for the past, I guess it's now a decade, maybe not quite that much, this board has had its share of ups and downs as a school board. And maybe we can turn the tide and move forward. Some of us won't be on this board, except Mr. Peace. But, you know, let's work together and leave a legacy of, hey, we're awfully proud of our school board and we're moving in the right direction. And then finally, don't underestimate what we have accomplished. You think what we went through this past year was easy? You know it wasn't. It's the hardest thing the school board can do. We hired a superintendent that we should be very proud of. We've got a great administrative staff, with the exception of Stan, but other than that. And my point is, there are a lot of great things going on. And the last
He's
thing is,
sleepy right now.
the last thing is that we will never get past the charter school stuff. When they charter schools continue to add a grade here and add a grade there. So anyway, I just don't think we can worry about them. Let's do what we can for our kids and move forward. Anyway, enough of the speech.
May I ask just one question?
Sure.
So what will be the focus and when should we expect studies back? Because we talked about time frames and so forth repeatedly. What's next?
Yeah, okay. I think if I'm not mistaken, what's next? What's next?
Well, we just completed the architect's report was published, and everyone had a chance to hear from them. There's still a phone conference available. I know Dr. Lynn, you've signed up for one, and if you'd like to as well, I can arrange that. Not a problem. They're happy to do it. So, I think the next step would be the motion that was made at the last meeting to have the experts come before the board in September. I've already gotten confirmation that Mayor Sargent is really excited about coming. I've spoken to Mike briefly about it. I need to follow up with him. I'm not sure if Mike is going to be the one to speak on behalf of Seguasa.
He doesn't want to touch
You want the chair,
Well, yeah, he's been the director, I guess, for the. He asked me that
but
question.
he doesn't
so-
vote.
Okay, so the
You
chairman.
need somebody who can make a decision and speak for the board.
Okay. I'm happy to invite that individual, and I don't know who it is, but I'll find out. So, and then the mayor of Creedmoor and the mayor of Butner.
Have you talked to Creedmoor?
No, sir. No, I wanted to make sure, I'm glad we brought this up. Are those the people that you would like for me to invite?
Is that it?
Otherwise, they will know the people, because they're starting a new development right behind my house.
Okay, I'll do
Yeah,
that.
they know. Yeah.
I would reach out to STEM possibly too, because they're developing.
Okay.
They've got a
Does-
new subdivision.
Now, with that being,
Does Butner need to be included?
Yeah, sure.
And Tommy, what's his name? Who's the mayor? Or
Terry Turner.
Terry Turner. Yeah.
I was just gonna ask, do we want the mayors or do we want the city and town managers? Because it seems to me like they have a little bit of pulse of what's going on with the town managers.
I think the motion I made was either one.
Well, and if
It
you
was
get the
either.
mayor, and if you ask them to come, they're gonna bring the town manager or whatever
Okay.
with them.
Right.
so this is for the September meeting, excuse me, so in the interest of time, what would you like for me to tell them as far as allotments of time? If we end up having 2, 3, 4,
Can we just
5,
can we just have a roundtable discussion? Or do we need if we have a formal presentation, we will never get out of there.
I agree.
But then, yeah, I mean, maybe you could send what we want to know ahead of time, like the number of housing permits or whatever. You're going to have water in X place? In other words, and then have a roundtable discussion? That's just an idea.
But is that at the September meeting?
No,
It'd be a
that's
separate
right.
meeting.
It's like a
That
work.
was separate meeting,
Yeah.
work session.
Put them up there. Jackie will never
Where
stop
we
talking.
invited?
I'm confused because I thought we invited them to the first
To
September.
the September
meeting.
meeting.
That was the
Oh,
motion.
did we?
Yeah.
So
The
then it
sixth
needs to
or
be
something like
informal, a 10-minute presentation or something.
And remember, we also have the 2 design teams that night.
We'll be there till midnight.
But they're giving us information we can't get anywhere
Yeah,
else.
you're right.
So maybe I might suggest that they provide something in advance and
Right.
limit their remarks to 5 minutes.
Or the thing that may be, why don't we have take the time to ask them questions if we have.
So let them maybe present 2 to 3 minutes, give us something ahead of time, knowing that we're gonna ask
That you're
them
gonna have
questions while
questions.
they're there.
Okay.
That's good.
Do they know
Well, so
They
I,
will.
I mean, to what
the
what
reason for
material
them
you
coming,
want them to provide in advance.
the reason for them, for their invitation was so that, this is what I told Jackie, was so that they could provide any information they have available about potential future growth in their community as it relates to the board's decision to reorganize schools.
And like, would you want the number of housing permits? Well, no, we got that.
We want
from the-
numbers.
Yeah,
Well, that's right, and you need Saguasa to lead it off.
yeah, we need, we have no clue what's going on with that.
Well,
You do.
I will say, in my conversation with Jackie, and Beth was with me, I was stunned, and she started rattling off all of these new
Sure.
figures, and I was like, whoa.
What was there outside?
But that's
She
right
knows
there,
it.
Carl Lake.
Who?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like,
So they get to-
Oh, she does.
She knows 800 units are coming, and she just started going with it.
I think it would be interesting, like you said, to see the difference in the northern part of the county. Oxford is on that different water system. The southern has the issue. I would let your cities make their presentation and then let Saguasa come in behind them, because then Saguasa can tell, can they do everything that those mayors just said they were gonna do?
Well, that's interesting. That would be an interesting, what would they say about that? Huh, okay, so that's the next one at the board meeting. At what point, getting back to Ed, what's next step? At what point does the board formally authorize a study of X, Y, and Z?
so you already have authorized 2 studies. One
Or-
is
Now,
the closure of Creedmoor Elementary School
Okay.
and the conversion of that to a middle school.
okay,
Okay, so you would move Holly over.
so that's one study. I know we've got some, and the other study is to have,
Just
keep,
simply closing an elementary school,
okay.
right?
Is-
Those are the 2 that are.
And not closing Holly?
I can pull it up real quick. It was on the document that I shared at the last board meeting. But essentially, it's 2 there are 2 studies that have been authorized. But
Already.
if you go back and you look at the
Revised.
template of the studies that we did for Toller and the study that we did for Mary Potter,
Right.
and you went to the table of contents, it
Right.
had all those different components.
Right.
So it was like facilities, academics, and we also so all those things would need to be, all that data would need to be gathered.
Right, and and that's part of the study required by the state.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
So once again, go back to, with the study was also a study of Holly.
I'm trying to pull it up and my internet just went down.
And also, it would be interesting on the southern end, because if we've eliminated Tar River and Mount Energy,
Which we, yeah.
now you're talking Wilton and Creedmoor Elementary.
That's
Those
right.
are your only choices.
That's right.
So,
And the other choice is what to do about, what to do about Holly, because if Holly, we made a decision X about Holly, how would that impact Creedmoor?
it's gonna impact something.
Yeah, big
That's right.
time.
And the problem is Harley's growing. Harley's be 575,
Yeah.
maybe more at the start of the school year.
Yeah.
So it's more than Northern Granville and Mary Potter.
And they've recruited quite a few back this summer, so I understand.
How many miles is it between Wilton Elementary and Tar River?
Wilton-
2.
Wilton Elementary, it's less-
Yeah,
as a matter
one
of fact,
iron. You can hit
from
a 1 iron.
From Creedmoor Elementary to Tar River, the totality is, I think, is 7.6 miles.
Okay,
So
Wilton-
you have about 2 miles.
Okay.
I think the furthest distance is between Creedmoor Elementary, and, well, not Creedmoor Elementary, and Mount Energy. The furthest distance is between Mount Energy and Wilton. And once you get to Wilton, you just turn the corner
It can't even
and
be a mile.
you're at Tar River.
Yeah, I think
You're
they're
not
right
a
on
mile,
top of each other.
If you cut a couple of trees
but it's
down, you can see-
7.6 miles total.
Okay.
So I've got this pulled up.
Okay, we
So
need it.
in March of 2019, you approved 3 studies. Okay, the first was close Holly and convert a southern area elementary school to a middle school, and then sell the Holly campus. The second study was renovate Holly and close a southern area elementary school. The third one was close a southern area elementary school, close Holly Middle School, and convert an existing high school to a middle school. But then, in May, you rescinded the previous 3 scenarios by unanimous vote and You removed Tar River and Mount Energy as potential options, okay, so you took those off the table. And you left two things on the table. The one was obtain information regarding just the straight up renovation of Hawley. And the other was relocate Hawley Middle School to Creedmoor. And turn Creedmoor and close Creedmoor Elementary School basically and put a Hawley there.
So that's the only
so-
one that requires a certain elements, like to
Correct.
study renovating Holly is just to study like anybody uses the term.
That's
It's
right.
when you're talking about closing a school that you have those elements.
So
So you really have one school closure study.
That's right. So all the other elementary schools were, any consideration of any other elementary schools rescinded based on that motion that you made at the May 6th meeting.
Including Wilton Elementary?
Well, that-
Wilton was not part of the discussion, was not part of any of the motion that was made at May 6th.
I think the Wilton kind of was an offshoot conversation off to the side of just dispersing them and getting rid of that building.
I thought the study to move Hawley to South Granville High School was still there.
Sounded like it was rescinded.
It was all of those previous scenarios were rescinded, and the motion included just those three things.
And that was
And
after you got the report from Al Rager.
That's right. And I went back and double checked the minutes and all that to make sure I was right.
So the third thing, renovate Hawley, move Hawley to Creedmoor Elementary, and the third one was close the Southern Area Elementary.
No, the third one was you removed Tar River and Mount Energy from consideration.
But that wasn't a study.
Right, but these were the three components of the motion that was passed. You rescinded the previous scenarios and studies and included the following. So really, he was right. The only really thing that's been approved for a study is the closure of Creedmoor and moving Hawley to Creedmoor. So we would need to make another you would need to make another motion to consider the closure of another school.
And I would just note that because this was noticed at a meeting for a certain purpose that didn't include that, I would recommend you do that at the next regular meeting, if you were gonna make a motion like that.
So what we're expecting is a deliverable right now. We've got the architecture report already. We're expecting a study that will move Hawley to Creedmoor after it's closed. And then we will look at a general study of sorts of what it would take to renovate Hawley. And technically, that's the architectural report, right?
That-
Already?
Facility costs were included in the architect's report. Beth Day and I provided the financial impact related to personnel. And that was an attachment in an email that I sent when I forwarded that out. And I can resend that if anyone needs that. But
Resend that tonight, so it's at the top of their email.
Can you also, all this new data since February with all this, can you reload it back into that Board of Education folder where we were putting all those studies that all of us have access to? I think we kind of stopped doing that after Toller and Mary Potter. Yeah, and we need to get
We
Lynn.
need to include Ms. Lynn,
you're talking about the Google Drive.
the Google Drive, so we can include Lynn.
Is everyone good with getting into that Google Drive? I know we had a little trouble that one meeting.
Okay, good. One last thing before we leave, I want to go back. Now, we approved Rob doing the lab study, okay? We didn't do anything formal about bringing it back to the body as a whole, even though we did that. Are we comfortable with where we are? In other words, if Rob, you came up with something you wanted to do in January, we wouldn't have to go back through this process again and again with the board.
We haven't, again, last date asked for is February 6th.
I'm not, Rob, I know that.
Yes, if
happens
it's a study,
moving
yeah, if
forward?
it's a study or something, we come before the board, like we discussed last December with Allison Schaefer's recommendation, when you and I went in November,
Sure.
School Board 101.
Sure.
And if it's a simple public record, like,
We used the example at our last board meeting, we were talking about school lunch balances. And we made a motion to instruct staff to bring that to us once a year.
Right.
So,
Right.
moving forward, we can do requests like that, I guess.
or an individual could ask for a simple,
Absolutely. That's, you're a
it's a
citizen.
public records request.
Sure. And if, as long as it's, yeah, okay. I just want to make sure when we leave here and something comes up possibly down the road that we don't have this discussion again. Okay. Is there anything else for the cause?
Well, for the cause, Stonewall Shaw's gonna be ready to rock and roll
Absolutely.
first day.
We are ahead of schedule. Dr. Winborn was
I saw
out there
that.
yesterday.
Okay.
Yesterday, you want to give just a little update?
Yeah, basically they were putting the last little bit of the gravel base down in the front of the school, and they have it half paved already in the front, so they just need to lay the rest of the asphalt, and then they'll start striping. Probably I did hear that they might wait on planting some of the trees until it gets a little cooler, shrubbery and all that, but everything else will be done.
Yeah,
All the lighting and everything will be in.
idea where we are money-wise with it, are we coming budget-wise?
Right on target, yeah, right on target.
What about the gyms?
Gyms are looking fantastic. The HVAC projects in general at South Granville and Jeff Webb are both on budget,
Right.
on schedule. We did have a minor issue at the gym at South Granville. They had to cut holes in the roof, and it leaked somewhat on the gym floor in one small part. And the contractor is accepting full responsibility for that if there's any lasting damage. So.
What I'll tell you is Dr. Winborn and I talked about that just this morning. I don't know if the community realizes these were 3 major
Oh, huge.
projects. 2 HVAC systems being installed in old gyms, and then that Stovall Shaw parking lot. And I said, one of the things we want to do, and he's not interested in this, but I think this body understands it. Dr. Winborn did a heck of a job with this summer.
Sure did.
And I think he deserves some praise for that. He did a heck of a job with it. Those were major. But the community needs an opportunity to see what we've done. We, meaning this board, you all did a great job with that. We don't have to hear about children having asthma in hot gyms anymore. We don't have to hear about why kids can't try out for volleyball teams anymore. We have taken care of that. The parking lot issue with moving the Joe Toller children over to Stovall Shaw, the issues of being backed up on that highway, the fear, the ugly letters, the terrible emails we received, the hate mail. We hope it will cease now. The hope is this. We're thinking about an evening or an afternoon when maybe we can get out there and invite people, come practice, a nice little practice, because now they're coming onto the property, going behind the building and coming out. Teresa and her folk have already begun getting the word out. So we're in the beginning stages. But wouldn't it be nice if we had an evening where the Board of Ed invited people to come out, to come practice with us? So we're toying with some things. We'll get something out to you. We just haven't, we didn't get time today to process it. So be on the lookout. But I want you all to be proud of yourselves for that. That was, again, you bit the bullet on something that's been long standing. Those have been around for a minute.
Quick question on Stovall Shaw. Every time I drive by there at night, all the lights in every classroom are on, and I know it's eating up tons of utility money. Why is that? I don't see it at West Oxford, but it's always Stovall Shaw.
We are actually doing that at some of our schools based on advice from the engineers, and it helps the HVAC humidity level, the humidity levels, keeping the lights on at night, and the reduction of possibility of mold growth.
I just hate to see the electric bills.
Well, actually,
We don't want mold.
So one thing I haven't mentioned recently is that we have done a major overhaul with our lighting in the last 6 months with conversion to LED too.
Really?
Yeah.
That's been a big project.
Our electrician, he's been doing that nonstop.
And since you're talking about major overhaul, Dr. Winborn had a neat meeting yesterday with some of our custodians. And you remember that Lysol project we've sort of piloted this year? Give just one snippet of that meeting. I thought was pretty powerful.
So they did a 4-month pilot study in the spring, and they'll do it in all of our elementary schools this year. And their data showed that the cleaning protocols they were doing reduced it by 10 times the amount of organic particulates on the desks, like 10 times. It was like 500,000 particles per sample versus 50,000.
Isn't that something?
Are wiping them with Lysol?
Yeah, pretty simply, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there was a little bit more to it than that, but basically using Lysol products.
Isn't that interesting?
They came in and taught our custodians how to clean
Mhm.
using the Lysol products versus, and those were the, those, how many schools did we have in that
There
this
were
spring?
2 control and 2 intervention. but
And 2
this-
intervention
there'll be
groups.
8, all of our elementary schools this year.
And so this year, all of them, but that's major. And Stan is being so kind. He's giving you all the
Tons of
nice
free
version.
products.
The nice version.
He had, Miss Day was driving us to graduation yesterday, and he was just leaving that meeting, and he decided to tell us all the things they found on the rags, and he was just, stop, don't tell us anymore. But it was pretty incredible. And think about the things we headed off with this new cleaning protocol that we really hope helps in all of our elementary schools this year. So when we're talking environmental cleanliness, we're serious about that. We are. So we're really pleased. And so we want to get some nice articles out there and talk about what you allowed this system to do this year. You all signed off on that. You all signed off on that. That was a research study we allowed to come into the district to pilot. And frankly, we did a good job of that too. So we're excited. No one calls the news cameras for that, but we better
Well, the
be
other
for
thing
that.
that we got to thank you to is for all the work that you put into closing Toller, moving all the furniture all over the place,
Yes.
bus routes, and all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. Mary Potter, all that, that's another huge thing that you all did, and you're to be commended because that can't be easy.
Well, there are a lot of people that made that happen. A lot of really hardworking folks in this district. A lot of unsung heroes. Custodians that work nonstop, drenched with sweat. It's the people that we have working for our organization. It's pretty amazing.
They're incredible.
We're pretty lucky.
Is that furniture gonna be recycled, or did I?
Some of it will be. Yeah, we might even have like a yard sale or something if I can figure out a way with Beth Day to.
Look at Ben.
Gotta declare a surplus.
That's right.
Put it on
Okay.
govdeals.com.
Well, that's a great way to end the meeting.
It is. It's been a good day. If you remember, I
Thank
think.
you for what you do.
Well, listen, I thank you all, and I publicly want to say thank you. I don't take it lightly. 2 additional years because I know I can't turn things around in 5 minutes. I can't. But I promise to give you 150%. And with this team, we're going to give you the best we've got. We have some doggone good people who are committed to children. That's the beautiful thing about it, and they want children to succeed. And that's what I ask. People think I'm crazy when I say, do you like children? But that's a big deal. If they don't like them, I don't want them here. I really don't. They've got to like kids. And we're fortunate. I consider us blessed in a lot of ways, but we have got to get that performance up. We have to do that, and I believe we will. So thank you. Thank you sincerely for the opportunity to do that. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move if we adjourn.
Is there a second? Mr. P, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Until September.
Yes, but I need to see the liaison. We got to meet
Right.
with the commissioner.